Alan, could we just start with your personal history with the piece? Where did you first hear about it? How did it come into your life?
This piece came into my life because I commissioned it. It started as a conversation between myself and Lindsay Duncan. We were at Stratford with the Royal Shakespeare Company together at the time, and her mother was ill, as it turned out, with Alzheimer's, and eventually died. But it was at the time when that disease takes a particular hold, which is halfway between something tragic and something comic, and so these stories that she was telling me started to sound like one of many lives, particularly women's, that never get recorded. Working, ordinary women. And something in me said, would you talk to Sharman MacDonald, who I had a previous relationship with in that years ago. I was a scriptreader at the Bush Theatre in London, and her first play came in unsolicited, which was called When I Was a Girl I Used to Scream and Shout, and I was the scriptreader and at that time it didn't say Sharman MacDonald, it said Pearl Stewart, because she didn't want to confess who she was, because she was a working actress at the time. Anyway, I said to them, well, you should do this. Anyway, they did, and then it went to the West End and was a huge success. So Sharman and I had a history, and I somehow instinctively thought that she and Lindsay should talk, and that Sharman was the right person for her to talk to if we were going to make something of this, just to tell this story. So then you have to fast forward through their meeting, and then after a while Sharman saying, yes, there is something I want to write, and then her producing a first draft, which was probably now about 4 or 5 years ago. And then it went through many drafts while I was in America filming, and she was working in London on various other projects. Somewhere, maybe 2 years ago, I was asked to direct a play at the Almeida Theatre in London, and various things became not possible to do for one reason and another, and I said, well, there is this play, The Winter Guest, which Sharman had bravely said, but I don't want anybody else to direct it, because she could have let it go a long time previously. And I had always worried that it wasn't stageable in a small theatre, because its premise is that it's a winter day in this small town in Scotland and the sea has frozen. And how on earth? And you have to see all of that on the stage in some measure. And I thought the Almeida was too small to pull it off, but I reckoned without Robin Donn, who designed the set and then indeed was production designer on the film, and he produced an absolutely stunning realization of this world, the house, the beach, the frozen sea, the promenade. And so the play went on, and was a big success, as it should have been, because it's beautifully written and was wonderfully acted. Phila Delore played Elspeth as she does in the film. Some of the people from the play made it into the film, not the two boys, because by the time we made the film they were 15, and it's very important that they're prepubescent. It's part of the story of their lives. I suppose the great sacrifice in many ways was Sian Thomas, who was the person brave enough to chop her hair off and play what in the play was an almost silent role of the daughter. Not entirely, but comparatively, so much so that a lot of actresses who might have read it at the time said, but she doesn't have anything to do. Sian, I'm glad to say, then went on to win all sorts of award nominations because it was a remarkable performance. But the world being what it is, and one having to not just but happily accept certain rules of the game, a kind of destiny seemed to take hold of the whole thing, because we had no idea that a film was going to be made of this. But if a film is going to be made of it, and it's a mother-daughter relationship, it helps that Emma Thompson is Phila Delore's daughter. And there is a kind of rightness which I think even Sean acknowledges now, that this was a moment in time. And the strange serendipities and strokes of destiny that have surrounded this piece of work also included the fact that Phillida could not have done the play until the moment when we went into rehearsal for it, because for the previous 5 years she'd not been able to do any theatre because she'd been nursing her mother, Emma's grandmother, through Alzheimer's. So, you know, these threads that brought this thing together at the right time, at the right place, when Emma was ready to say, yes, I can go on screen as the mother of a 16-year-old boy, which I think is quite a big thing for an actress with an American film reputation to do. The time, I don't know, we were hanging on to its coattails.
How did you settle on Pittenweem? You must have looked at a lot of Scottish locations. What did you need from it?
Well, I wanted to find a location. It's not about Scotland. I'm sorry to say to the Scottish Tourist Board. I mean, I hope it encourages people to go there, because, of course, we had a wonderful location, and Sharman is very, very Scots and writes for her the language that she knows and the people that she knows. But the film is not really about Scotland so much as about a small community, isolated at a particular time of the year. I was looking for somewhere which gave it a kind of placelessness, I suppose, and if you look at the film, we don't really focus on the houses so much. You look at empty streets and walls and beaches and cliffsides, and so I was looking for something that could be anywhere. In some cases, a bit like a moonscape, and Pittenweem and Ely and the surrounding towns gave us that in bucket loads, really.
And how about the freezing over of the sea? I mean, how did you achieve that?
Well, as I speak, we're still achieving it, partly through the brilliance of Ben Scott, Ellie Griff and Robin Donn in the art department, and this wonderful firm called Snow Business, who I said, well, you know, we have various ideas, and they showed me their brochure, and I said, well, what's that, looking at a frozen lake? They said, oh, that was a car park. I said, well, then what we need is an airfield then, isn't it? And this is when you know that serendipity is following you around, because the location manager said, oh, well, there's Crail Airfield 3 miles away. And this hadn't really been used since the war, all these broken down lookout posts and what have you. So 50 yards or 75 yards of that was iced up and art directed, basically, and then we built a windbreak, which now a firm in Los Angeles called D-Res are computer graphicking out to the horizon and putting in seagulls and changing skies and things like that, so that we've done it for the foreground and they're taking it into the distance.